This is Tim Weir with a video clip from SemiHomemadeTools.com.
So right now we're going to talk about polishing and using a buffer to polish up your parts before you assemble your machine. And our goal for the day is to turn this into something that looks like this. There's quite a bit of difference, and that's what we're after. So in order to do that, we are going to use what's called a buffer. Now, you can put buffing wheels on a hand drill. You can put them on a drill press, and they will work. They work better where you have them, where you can get a higher speed out of them. For example, this buffer is rated at 3,600 revolutions per minute, and that's really good speed for buffing. It has 2 spindles on it. And we'll talk about the buffing pads in just a second. This particular machine came from Harbor Freight, actually. It's not expensive. I think I got it on sale for probably $39, something like that. It's a little bit more than that day to day. But if I were going to be doing polishing day in and day out, especially in a commercial situation, you know, now we're talking about spending hundreds of dollars to get a quality buffer that's really going to last. But for the kind of use that I have, and for what most people would use at home in their own shop, you know, a very inexpensive buffer will be just fine. The key pieces to look for is how much space you have between the machine itself, or between the buffing motor and the pad, because if you've got a wide piece to do, you need to be able to get to the center of it, or pretty darn close. And if you are wider than that, or you're trying to do it on a small motor, or something's got a very squared off shoulder out here on the motor, that's going to limit the size of the piece that you're able to do. Of course, on the small pieces that we're doing right now, it's not going to matter. But for example, on something a little bit larger, we need to be able to get at least to the center, which I am over center there, and we can always turn it around to do the other side. So that's one of the features you want to look for. And so if at all possible, I suggest you get an actual buffer, not something that's been converted from a grinder, or something that is like a drill press, or something that is just like an electric motor off of a furnace, for example, or whatever. So if you can do it, if you can spare the $40 or $50 and get an actual buffer, I think you're going to be much happier with the results. So we've got a couple of pads on here, and you can see that they look quite different, and there's reason for that. This one is known as a sewn buffer pad. That's because there's stitching here that holds all of these layers of cloth together. It's usually like a cotton cloth or a muslin cloth. It's sewn so that it holds all of that together, makes it pretty stiff. I mean, it's not super stiff, but it's stiff enough that it's going to do some real heavy grunt work for you on taking off a lot of material. On the other side, we actually have all those same layers, but they're not sewn together. They are loose. And this is going to give you a much softer surface, and so we're going to use that for the final polish. And one of the things you want to remember when you're working with buffing is that each pad that you use should have a dedicated purpose. It should only be used for one type of thing. For example, I use this pad strictly for doing the heavy first work, for really knocking off some of the surface material and cleaning it up. And then the other one, of course, is for the final polish. Well, just like we have 2 different pads, we have several different kinds of polishing compounds that you're going to apply to this, because that's what's really going to do the work. Just having the buffing pad itself isn't going to help you much. You need some polishing compound, and that's what we're going to use today. We're going to have 2 different ones that we use. One is it's brown. Sometimes it's called red. Sometimes it's called just simple rouge. That is the more aggressive and of the compounds that are out there. And as it says on this one, it's compound for all-purpose compound for copper, brass, aluminum, and most metals. So most metals, you can use this on there and it's going to do a pretty good job for you. And it's just a stick of rouge. Now, of course, I've used part of this and it's hard to tell what color it is. That's why part of why I keep it in the original container. But on the one end, you can still see that it's a brown or red color. So I know which one that is. If I happen to just lay it down, I can know what it is, as long as I always use just the one end. The other one is called white, and it says it's used to prevent scratches and restore the natural look of aluminum and plastics. In other words, this is really your high polish. This is what gives it that rich luster, that mirror-like surface after you're done. So the white is used for that. There again, it looks pretty dark there, but you can tell that it really is white. So these are the two compounds we're going to use. And once you've used a compound on a particular pad, never use a different compound on it. Because if I use this on here, that's what it's got embedded in it. And no matter how much of the white I would try to put on here, there's still some of that brown in there. By the same token, if I normally use this one over here for the white, which I do, and I said, well, I just got a little touch up to do, or for whatever reason I grabbed the wrong one, and I try to put that on there, it's going to defeat the purpose of having one that just gives you that mirror-like surface. So, just want to be careful. I tend to make sure when I'm working with them that I always keep them left and right. And so when I pick it up, apply a little bit, set it back down, it's on the right, this one's on the left. That helps me keep it straight, because otherwise I would just grab something and end up using the wrong one on there, and that would not help. There are a couple of safety issues with this. Remember, this thing's flying at 3,600 RPM. Turn it on. And in and of itself, that is not dangerous. However, if you put a piece up there and it catches the wrong way, it's going to try to throw that away from you, okay? And therefore, you always want to wear gloves, because this thing's going to be grabbing. It's going to, at times, it's going to get in the wrong position and it's going to grab and try to pull that out of your hand. Well, if you're wearing a good pair of work gloves, and these are the ones that all I do with them is polishing. If I wear those, you're not going to rip my hand open if you pull that out, for one, which I think is a really good thing. And the other is, we are buffing this thing. We're gonna raise the temperature by quite a bit on these parts. So in order to keep from burning my hand and be able to continually grasp and hold on to it, I'm going to wear the gloves. And this is the other piece. This is a full face mask. Honestly, there's two reasons for wearing that. One is that this stuff, well, if anything should fly around and come up and hit you in the face, obviously from a pure safety standpoint. Aside from that, as this thing spins and as the material, as our aluminum pieces are up there, little bits of this are going to flake off. And when we do this one over here, even bigger pieces are going to flake off. And so what we want to do is make sure that we don't get that coming up in our face and end up breathing it in, because it's really, it's nasty stuff. I did it once, and only once, without a full face mask, and when I got done, my face was just solid black, and it looked like my hands look right now from handling all this, and it was not fun to clean up. And honestly, it took me a couple of days to get my nostrils and my sinuses cleared out from it. So I learned pretty quickly on that one. You want to wear this at all times when you're running the buffer. It'll also, it's got the particular one that I have, I just bought it locally and was very, very cheap, you know, like $12, $13 for the whole thing. It has a solid surface here which covers the front part of your face or the front part of your forehead and helps keep some of the threads and the dust and so on out of your eyes or excuse me, out of your hair and off your forehead and so on. So I'll be putting that on in here in just a minute when we start and be running with that. So what's the process? Obviously we've got to knock down this edge first. We got to clean that up quite a bit. And so we put a little bit of rouge on here. It only takes a little bit at a time. You can keep adding it as you go, but it only takes a little bit at a time. And it's going to start polishing out this and actually smoothing out some of the rough spots and along the edge and so on. It's not like sanding. It's not going to take out everything, but it certainly will help clean it up a lot. And the technique that I use is when I'm holding it, I always want my part tipped down like this as long as I'm not getting an edge into this, because that's where it's going to pull it out of your hand. So I keep the back edge clear at all times, and you want to be up against it like that because this thing is turning this way, and that way if you do have to let go of it, it's going to pull it away from you rather than throwing it at you. So do that when you do edges. Again, you want to do like that, but stay away from that back edge, because as soon as you get to that back edge, it's going to pull it around and rip it right out of your hand. So you can do that to get the other side of it. You can just turn it around and do it. If you need to go the other direction, in other words, if you need to go this way on it because of what looks like grain, I mean it's just the water jet marks on there. To get really between them at the finest level, you may need to turn it sideways. Again, just make sure you keep the back edge, the edge that's towards you, the upper edge, keep it away from the wheel. So you can do half, turn it around, do the same thing on the other half, and that should work pretty well for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get my mask on, and I'm going to turn this on, and I probably won't talk a lot during this because the motor's going to be run a little bit hard for you to hear. I'm going to have the face mask down over my face. That's going to muffle it a little bit, make it hard. So what I'll do is I'll do a little bit, then I'll stop and we can talk about it, and we'll do a little bit more, and we'll see right where we're going. So here's what we're starting with. Now, as you look at that, you can see where it's already starting to do quite a good job of cleaning up that surface, but it's also leaving some really smeary, dusty stuff on there. That's compound that's actually getting caked on there, and we don't want that. I mean, it's fine while we're doing that to get it on there, but before we're done working on this wheel, we want to see how much of that we can get off so that it doesn't get transferred to the other wheel. Okay. Okay, like I said, you can already see a significant difference from one side to the other. And it's done a good job, but it still looks pretty smeary in spots. That's all going to clean up really nicely when we get over on the other wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and work the other side of this, and then we'll work the edges a little bit and see how that goes. What I'm probably going to end up doing here, we'll get through partway through this, and rather than have you sit there and just watch me do the whole thing, I will stop the video and move us closer to the end. But I do want you to see how we're working on the edges and to work on the other side a little bit. And then we'll get things going again when we're ready to move to the other side. So I am going to reload here just a little bit because I've already put some on there. Now I'm going to reload just a little bit. Doesn't take much. Okay, you can see what that looks like now compared to what the edges are when they're not cleaned up and not buffed at all. That's what the edge looks like. There's our good surface on the side, and that's what we're starting to come up with now on the edge. By the time we get it over there and give it the mirror polish, it's just going to be really, really nice. I will tell you, this piece now is quite warm. I would not want to be trying to hold on to this piece without my gloves, just because the friction from this has heated up the piece quite a bit. And working smaller pieces like that, that's going to happen. You're going to have some heat rise on all parts, but when they're small like this and you're working in a concentrated area, that heat just, there's really not much of a place for it to go. So it's going to heat up really, really quickly. So you do want to be careful. And in fact, if it gets too warm for you, even with the gloves on, you know, you can set it aside and grab another piece and work on that. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and turn off the camera, and then I'm going to finish up this piece, and we will turn the camera back on when we're ready to move over to the second stage buffing. Okay, I'm about ready to move over to the other side, but I just wanted to give you a quick glance at that. Again, it may look a little bit smeary, but that's just because we've got still a little bit some compound on there, and you're never going to get quite all that off. And quite frankly, we haven't really finished the buffing process yet. We've just kind of done the first step of it. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with what that looks like. We're getting some nice reflection of light, but when we do the other piece, when we do the other one, we're going to end up getting the kind of reflection that you get out of a mirror, where you could actually see yourself in it. So even the part here that's been machined, where we've drilled and tapped, all that cleaned up really nice. Even the edges of that cleaned up really, really nicely. So this is about ready to go to the other side. Okay, I brought the camera around to the other side so you'll get a little better view of what we're doing over here on the final buffing side. And while we were while we had the camera off, I went ahead and kind of worked on some other parts, and yeah, they still look like they need some work, obviously, because they haven't had the second stage. But you can see that we got them cleaned up a little bit, and we'll be able to work with them. This is the one that we started with, and it's looking pretty good. We need to get this cleaned up. Now, I have noticed the buffer is getting pretty warm. I've been going at this pretty solid now with these pieces for probably an hour or so. That's one of the differences you'll find between, you know, a $40 buffer and one that costs, you know, $80 or $100 or $200. So keep an eye on that, and you're going to want to let it cool off when you between every so often. I should probably let this cool off right now. I'm going to go ahead and do some of the buffing on this at least, so that you can see what a difference it does make. And then we're going to kind of shut it down for the evening, and we'll come back at it tomorrow. So let me go ahead and got my mask on, got my gloves. By the way, I don't know whether you noticed, I was continually running my hand into the buffers as I was going, and that's part of the reason for wearing the gloves, because that way you're polishing your gloves instead of polishing your skin. Okay, I still need to do a little bit more on this, and that's just for my own personal preference. I'd like it a little bit better than it is, but I think from here you can probably see how much more of a mirror-like surface we got there. I'm looking at it right now. I don't know whether we can get the angle right for you or not, but I'm actually looking at the reflection of the spindle in the surface of the part right now, where the other side that I haven't done yet, I can see it, but it's not a real sharp image. So you can see this is the side that I haven't done the final polishing on yet. Still looks pretty good, but I think we're going to want to be sure and do it. Edges overall look pretty good. I didn't spend much time on them. You saw exactly how much time I spent on them, just really a couple of minutes. And I'll probably do just a tiny bit more on this surface, just because there's a couple of spots that that could use a little bit more. But that's it. One of the things that I did not mention before, and I think is really important in terms of technique, and that is, generally speaking, it's not how much force you can put on this. In other words, more force does not necessarily equal a better job. It's kind of like sandpaper. You reach a point where once you go too heavy with the sandpaper, really all you're doing is clogging up the pores or clogging up the grit. So a light touch works better. I use I'm a little bit aggressive when I'm over on the first wheel. As I finish on that wheel, I try to lighten up, because that does quite a bit for it. When I come over here, generally I take a pretty light touch on it. It looks like I may be doing more, but that's just because this is not sewn and it's very, very soft. So we go ahead and do it pretty lightly on there. In fact, this piece really hasn't warmed up at all, because we really haven't put much pressure on it, and there hasn't been that much resistance. So a nice light touch. It won't take you truly, but 20 or 30 minutes of playing around with this, and you're gonna know exactly what you need to do, and just by feel what's going to be doing the best work for you. So that's going to wrap it up for this. If you're going to do your polishing, I suggest you do get at least an inexpensive polisher and use that. And I think it's well worth the time and effort. I will probably end up with a total of I wouldn't be surprised if I end up with a total of 10 hours by the time we start doing some of these larger pieces. Obviously, they're going to take quite a bit more time, but 10 hours for a machine that's going to last you a lifetime, and you're going to want it to look good. That's really a pretty small time investment. So that's it on buffing.
This video is presented by Semi Homemade Tools, where we help you create and build tools to fall in love with. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so now. We welcome you to visit us and find lots of other free information at semihomemadetools.com.